Welcome to the Talk and Chatter experience powered by Gasoline Alley Harley Davidson. Today's guest is Dan Mckenzie, professional off-road racer and motorsport coach / instructor. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. Thanks so much for coming in for one thing, but who's Dan Mckenzie?
I've been around motorsport my whole life and absolutely love going fast and love what I do. And at the moment, I'm a professional off-road racer, so I run a team and manage CMS racing team. We've got a couple of trophy trucks in the States, as well as we've got a couple of pro buggies in Australia and UTVs. So I'm more into the four wheels now than the two wheels.
It's a crazy sport at the moment, hey. It's going through like a huge growth cycle internationally, hey.
Oh, exactly. You know, we come into it with the side-by-sides, and they were just growing like massive, and it's brought off-roading to a new level. It's pushed the whole off-roading scene to the next level, and we've evolved from side-by-sides to now pro buggies and trophy trucks. So being able to race trophy trucks in America is pretty cool.
That's like the optimum in that sport, isn't it, really?
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. You know, it is the only true unlimited form of racing. It's unlimited. Whatever you can do. In the States, just whatever you can do, whatever you can dream up, you can go as fast as you want, big as motor you want, and one of our trucks over there's got 1,300 horsepower. Damn. So it's just whatever you want to do, but you got to make it finish. It's an endurance sport as well.
Wow. So you could have like a 7-litre up against a twin turbo 3-litre or something, just whatever. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So in the States,
yep.
One of our trophy trucks got a 600 cube big block in it.
Wow.
So it's not a toy.
American muscle.
Yeah, exactly. That's about 1,100 horsepower, that truck. Yep. Pushing 40-inch tyres, so it's an absolute weapon. But our new truck that we've just bought is an all-wheel drive truck, and that's a twin-turbo 454 small block.
Ah, right.
So that's the real deal, that thing. But with all this COVID, we haven't been able to go over there and race it, so it's sitting over there waiting for us.
So the 600 cube, obviously, that's naturally aspirated, hey?
Yes.
Yep. So the small block, twin-turbo. Yep. And what's the desired one? Would it be going to the small block with the two turbos?
Oh, definitely the all-wheel drive truck is the latest and greatest. Like, basically, that's $1 million Australian dollars.
Wow.
It's not a toy. It's the real deal. It's probably the fastest off-road truck in the world. 161 mile an hour top speed. That's 161 mile an hour.
So what's that? 235 k's, somewhere around that?
Yeah, around the 250.
250. Yeah. Wow.
Ish. Off-road, and it'll go over knee-to-waist high bumps at 120 mile an hour without even feeling a thing, and it's all-wheel drive, so it's the latest and greatest. So it's pretty cool. We can't wait to get back and race that.
So how does it feel in the passenger seat or something like that? Like, is it just like you've got adrenaline for one thing, and you've raced bikes and cars, everything. How does it feel in the passenger seat?
So for a passenger, it's quite daunting. The first time you jump in a truck with a driver that knows what they're doing, we sort of, you might be hitting a few bumps and stuff. Yep. But as a passenger, the first time you're seeing something come up at 100 mile an hour, and you just like brace yourself and you tense up and you're just like, oh, this is going to hurt. And then you go through it and go, shit, I didn't feel a thing.
Wow.
And then as you start to get more and more comfortable with it, you start to go like, you're going faster and faster, and you still get beat up. We still get beat up in these trucks. There's been times where I've felt like I've been pissing blood.
Wow.
That's how bad you still get beat up with some big hits.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
It's a crazy sport. Like it's just a speed off-road. Like from the outside perspective, it's a crazy sport, eh?
Oh, it needs way more exposure than what it's got. Unfortunately for the sport, it's not spectator friendly because you're going out in the middle of the desert. It's hard for film crews and all that sort of stuff to get footage. It's awesome for the drivers and it gets a lot of following, but it doesn't really get the exposure it deserves. When we race Mexico at the Baja 1000, we're racing for 30 hours straight. So we jump in the car and we've got different drivers, so we go through our sleeps and all our stuff. But you're pretty much running on adrenaline the whole way, and the intensity of this sport is crazy, and people don't understand. Like, we wear a catheter, so, you know, we're going, you know,
Really?
we don't get out of the car for 12 hours.
Wow.
And, you know, you're sort of driving along and you do your pee and you tear your food off the roof and try and get food whenever you can in like a little short transport stage, and you're into it. It's hardcore.
That's crazy. I didn't. Same thing. I'm an outsider. I don't know much about that sport, but that's that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So what, Baja? What's it like?
Oh, Baja, Mexico is amazing.
Yep.
You know, the media are sort of tell everyone that Mexico is so dangerous and all that sort of stuff, and obviously it is. You know, you play with the wrong people and, you know, go there and mess around with drugs and all that stuff, you probably end up in the cartel's hand, and it's all pretty, you know, doom and gloom. But when you actually go there, it's a beautiful country down the peninsula, the Baja Peninsula. So the people are really welcoming, and it's got such a massive off-road following. That race brings millions and millions of dollars into that community every year. So they need that money to survive on. And, you know, we're going through towns, and in our team, we've got 25 people in our team. Wow. That's for one car.
That's for your car?
Yep. And, you know, we've got to feed those people, and we stop at a little town and we're buying them tacos and food, and we're spending money in the town. And there's 300 odd cars with 20 people per crew. It's just massive. The extent of it is huge. So, you know, and then there are remote stages where we'll jump in the car and you know, we've got 120 miles of nothing, no support. If you break down or you're done out there or something goes wrong, you're there for days. So
wow.
Obviously when you pre-run, you pick those sections where you can push the car. You pick the sections where you're obviously going to save the car and reserve the car. But you can't go at 100% that whole time, because your concentration levels will just sort of go through so many range of emotion.
Yep.
So yeah, but it's amazing. It is awesome. The people are awesome. I love it. I can't speak highly enough of that race.
How do you push yourself for 30 hours?
Well, it's a tough one. You sort of your lead up is important to me, you know, with our diet and our rest and all that sort of stuff. So we get a house on the beach in Mexico where we sit there and try and relax. We'll do our pre-run. We'll go back to the house. And we'll sort of sit around, have a few drinks and spar and sort of relax and chill out a bit. And then we'll do our pre-run section again. And then the lead up to it is where it's important, because from the time the flag drops and we're going, you're just running on adrenaline. And to be in the chase car, so I've led the race out a couple of times, and then I've done the mid, and then I've finished the race. So I've done, you know, different sections of the race, you know, throughout all of the races we've done there. But to lead the race out, you know, you're going to do the first 300 miles, you know, which is just under 500 kilometres. And you just run on adrenaline. Then you jump out of the car and you jump in the chase car, and the chase race is just as exciting as being in the race car. Yeah, like we've got our chase truck. We've got a brand new F450 over there. And you sit in that car, and we might be asleep in the back trying to get rest. And, you know, we're sitting on 82 mile an hour, because that's as fast as the chase truck goes, just through the desert, through the roads. And it is insane. The chase is just as fun as the race.
Holy crap.
And probably more dangerous too. There's more people that die from the chase than the actual race.
So I guess you've got 300 entries all doing the same thing too.
Yeah, that's
They're
right.
all trying to do the same path. Is the chase, and this might sound stupid, but is the chase car the same car you do your pre-run in?
No. We
pre-run
pre-run in just a stock Can-Am.
Oh, really?
So we've got a stock Can-Am that we pre-run. We put light bars, we put all our seats and all that stuff in it, and we run our GPS, because everything's navigation. So we run a Lowrance system, and then we put all our notes, and we pre-run in a pretty much a dead stock Can-Am with our King shocks and BFG tyres. And our control arms that we use, our Lone Star control arms, and then we just go for it. And we've done 2 laps around Mexico, you know, like 2,000 miles, didn't miss a beat.
Seriously?
Yeah, didn't do one belt, no tyres.
Wow.
And our pre-run pace on our second lap was probably faster than our race pace.
Wow. It's a bit of a testament to the Can-Ams.
Oh, it's amazing. They're an amazing car. You know, they're so much fun. So they're affordable and yeah, it's taking off-roading to the next level. Having a car of that level.
Come a long way, hey.
They have.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Like, because you used to have a Yamaha. What are they called? A YFZ1000 or something?
Yeah, YXZ 1000. So yeah, I was factory Yamaha.
Yep.
When they first come out, they got released. Because I've been with Yamaha for over 25 years.
Yep.
As a professional coach and racer. And then the YXZ come out, and because I was an instructor for rally school and track school and a professional driving instructor as well, they sort of said, oh, we need your help to, you know, teach the dealers how to drive and sell these things. So they put me on full-time to travel the country and teach the dealers how to drive, how to sell, and I'd sign the dealers off if they were safe enough to deliver the information that they could do their own test days. So then that led into racing, and I did the whole Australian Side-by-Side Championship, won about 5 rounds of that Australian Side-by-Side Championship, which was pretty cool. And then they sort of just ran out of money.
Yeah.
So when they ran out of money, my whole racing, everything, the world fell apart. It seemed like it, but lucky enough, Brett Comiskey, which, you know, our team owner now, was there, and we became good friends. And he said, well, come and race in America with me. I need you to set my cars up and help me out. And then from there, 3 years later, I'm working full-time racing and building cars and prepping and team manager and controlling sort of a team here and a team back in the States.
Because that's your whole thing now, hey? You're a team manager. Yep.
Pretty much.
Man, that's a hectic time.
It is, you know, like as the manager, I get the blame for everything. And, you know, we're not perfect. I might miss, you know, like the last Don River Dash we did, I didn't take some tables and a couple of lights because I was too busy concentrating on the car, and I copped it for that. But just simple things.
Yep.
But yeah, being a team manager, it's an important role to me, and I'm passionate about it and put my life into it. So therefore, it's just I've got to make it work. And having that competitive nature, like being competitive, I'm not going to race unless we're going to win. So I'm going to come up with angles that are going to give us an advantage that help us out and piece everything together. And I believe, you know, 80% of off-road racing is in the prep in the garage before we actually get to the track.
And I guess that's where you see a lot of DNFs.
Exactly. You know, like, we can have DNFs from driver error, which we've probably really, in all the races in the States and Australia, we've really only had one DNF to driver error. All the rest are mechanicals, you know, like bolts coming loose because there's not enough Loctite, or we're not torquing them, or, you know, they just become complacent. You know, the prep guys just become complacent, and it's like, she'll be right, that doesn't matter. Where we fly in and we're onto them and, make sure this is all good. And, you know, like cable ties, rubbing on wires and hoses and stuff is
basics.
Is what's going to put you out of the race.
Yeah, it'd be such an interesting thing, especially having a team over there, because you're not in control of that, the other 300 and whatever days of the year, are you?
No. So we do all that by phone, you know. So we talk to the team over there. We've been through a couple of prepping people, companies that do our prep. So we've come up with a pretty good team that we're all happy with our car prep. And they're really good over there now at the moment. So we can ring them and say, hey, you know, what's the go with this prep? You know, we had it. I've got pages and pages of database of all our settings, our results, you know, clutch settings and everything. So I can refer and just go, hey, run this, we'll send it through, and they go set it up for us. Pretty
cool thing to have. Like, that's huge, mate. Like, coming from racing Yamahas in Australia to having this, it's a pretty grand scale, isn't it?
The scale is just insane. You know, to race the Mint 400 with 2 trucks. We got Brett Comiskey in his truck, in the 34 truck, and then that's a Brenthal. And then I had a Racer Engineering, which was still a 454 small block, still a crazy built motor, and I raced that truck. So to have the two trucks side by side at the Mint 400 was amazing. And we raced the day before in the UTVs. So we done our 400 miles in the UTV, went home, had probably 6 hours rest, and then straight into the trucks the next day and did another 400 miles.
Come Monday, you'd just be destroyed.
Yeah, for sure. There's been times where I've got a pretty good relationship with my osteo. He's pretty cool. So I go and book in at least once a month and get a tweak and a bit of a back straighten, because people think, oh yeah, with age get a cage. You just sit there and drive. Coming from two wheels, it's not really like that. You still get beat up. We party and have a pretty good time, but it's still an emotional side of it where we have to concentrate mentally for that distance. And
it's still a lot of work behind the wheel. You're not just holding the wheel straight. There's a lot going on as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So having a navvy that you really trust is important as well, because they're on the GPS and we're driving, and then we just really have to trust everything they say, because the dust is insane. You'll come up on a car and you'll spend at least 40 minutes trying to get past a car. And 40 minutes at race pace is a long time where you can't do anything. You can't go offline. You're driving in the dust within half a metre of what the GPS say. So he's on the GPS, is a little bit more left, straight over crest or tight over crest or whatever, and they're all run off the GPS. And we're doing 80, 100 mile an hour.
Far out.
Zero visibility, like distance from me to you.
Purely just a computer screen. Just the low-rent screen. Yep.
Trusting the screen. But what you do have the advantage of over in the States is if you run wide, it's safe most of the time. Yep. But in Australia, you run wide and we're into trees. But that's still the case when you go into rock gardens and sections. You can still wad the car up pretty bad, but you really trust your navigator in the States. Where racing in Australia is just so, it needs to step up, to that level. They go grading the tracks and they make the tracks really smooth. Where over there, the tracks are just that rough that sorts the men out from the boys. Where we did a race up here and someone complained the track's rough, and then next thing you know, the grader's out there.
It's like a flat track.
Yeah. So no wonder the UTVs and that are winning everything in Australia. They're beating $500,000 trophy trucks and pro buggies because the tracks are so smooth and tight. They're really tight.
It's not enabling the high-spec vehicles to get in their element, is it?
No, definitely not. When we're driving pro buggies, we want the track as rough as we can, simply because that'll sort out someone who knows how to set a car up properly and knows how to drive and preserve the car. We won the Gundawindi 400. There were some faster cars out there, but they went out and broke, and DNF. So you can't win if you don't finish.
Say something like a Baja or, say, Parker 400 or something. You've got a mix of, some slower sections, obviously faster sections at some point. How do you set, suspension in every form of motorsport's the biggest thing you've got. How do you set a vehicle up like that? Yeah,
so basically with the team, I specialise in setting the cars up.
Yep.
And I work really well with and do a lot with Brett King, the owner of King Shocks.
Oh, wow. Yep.
So virtually every Can-Am that you buy with King Shocks has got my settings in it. We've developed them to the next level. So to set the car up, to answer the question, to set the car up for that, it's tough, because with off-road, you look at bumps, then you look at speed. So it's like frequency sound waves.
Yep.
So they go up and down, and there's no set bump the same. So if you go over a set of bumps at meter spacings at half a meter high at 60 mile an hour, the car might be nice. But if you go over there at 40 mile an hour, the car's going to be terrible because it's going to fall and land in them. And then sometimes, if you go over there at 100 mile an hour, you won't even feel a thing. But to have that confidence of not having the control of the car and the car's just skating and so loose, it's tough.
Yeah, it'd be one of those things because it's It is. It's the fundamental of every motorsport is suspension.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Suspension's everything.
Yep.
And I'm lucky enough from all my days of riding motorbikes, I worked really well with Ken Wheeler from Factory Spec when I was younger, and we'd travel the country racing, and we were always into suspension. So both Ken and I, and he loves suspension now, so even back then, we'd pull a shock apart. No, it's not quite right. Bang. And, we've always had really well set up bikes from attention to detail and spending the time back then. And all that knowledge from two wheels has travelled over to, the four wheel off road thing. And I treat these buggies and trucks as four wheel motorbikes. You set them up accordingly, and you drive them accordingly as well. So, you might even, use seat bounce techniques, as you would on a motorbike. You can do that in a car just by braking and accelerating at the right times to get the cars to unload and jump straight and stuff.
Yeah, right. So you've adapted a lot of it.
Oh, everything comes from two wheels. 100%, the two wheels, the motorbikes and off-road, motocross and all that has helped me so much.
So where did it all start for you? When did this crazy motorsport career start?
For me, I got a motorbike when I was 4 or 5, a Pee Wee 50, and I joined Blackdown Mini Bike Club in Sydney.
So you're from Sydney?
Yeah, I grew up in Sydney. So I was with Blackdown Mini Bike Club till I was about 12.
Yep.
Just doing club stuff, motorcarnas around Wichitats and all that stuff, which we don't see any of that in Australia much now, do we? Like
fundamentals.
Yeah. There's no grassroots coaching. There's no anything really crazy. It's just jump on a motorbike and go flat out around.
Take your logbook.
Yeah.
Get a logbook signed. That's all it is now, isn't it? You miss out on a lot of the fundamental things like that. Yep.
So, that was till about 12 years old. And then at about 12, because my dad owned a Midas muffler store.
Yep.
And then at about 12, I got into racing cars. One of the guys that Dad sponsored was into racing cars. And he said, bring your son out and have a drive. So we went out and had a drive of his race car.
Yep.
And that was John Boston. It was his race car at the time, and that car was actually a Datsun 1200 Coupe that raced in Bathurst.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so it was a real deal.
What a history that is, yeah.
Yeah, so I got to drive that car, and I went out there and won my class, first day ever. And
nice.
Next thing you know, my dad goes and we bought a Mitsubishi Factory Works rally car, which was a 1974 GB Galant.
Yep.
And then just started racing cars from about 12 to 20. And I was heavily sponsored, going pretty well. We used to race against the guys like, Warren Luff, and like some big names doing all, the club car register around Australia, which was pretty cool. And then it got to the point where my mum and dad separated and we ran out of racing budget. Ran out of sponsors. We couldn't afford to race. So I thought, well, I'm getting beaten by people with a lot more money. I only go back to two wheels, go back to motorbikes. So at about 20, I had a few years off, travelled around Australia on XR600s a couple of times.
Nice.
Did some big treks, which was pretty cool. And then when I was about 22 or something, I went and seen Husky Imports, Stefan Appelgren from Husky Imports, and I did one race on a Husky, and then I ended up riding for Husqvarna for quite a few years. And then in about 98, I went to Yamaha. 98 or 99, I went to Yamaha with the first YZ400 and the YZ426.
Yep.
So I rode for MacArthur Motorcycles, rode all the the New South Wales Championship stuff, rode the Thumpernats, and I used to do quite well with that, but it just got to the point where working, and because I was living by myself, it just financial drain was just too much, and then I just become a full-time coach.
Wow, so you went straight over to coaching?
Yeah, so because I couldn't really afford to race at the level that I wanted to race at and win, and I had a few wrist injuries and stuff from crashing as we do, and then it sort of evolved. I got asked to help a few kids out, and I've always loved helping people out. And my whole career, I've I've helped more people out, you know, and lots of pro races at this point. So my whole career, I was helping people out, and then when I did a coaching, got my level 1 coaching license with Lyndon Heffernan and Stephen Gall, and Gawley turned around and says, okay, well, do you want to come work for me? And then next thing you know, I'm full-time, not full-time, but coaching a lot, like 30 coaching schools a year, sorry.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So 30 weekends a year for Gawley, and then and Heffo, and you know, getting more and more bike time, and that's how I become a coach for so long. And so I own the Queensland Academy of Off-Road Riding franchise. I leased that off Heffo for a few years. And did lots of stuff with Chris Urquhart. Like, I spent my whole time building his business up. Chris, like YAIM when they were YAIM and all that stuff. And yeah, I've done, you know, lots with Moto DNA, so road bike schools.
Is that Mark McVeigh?
Yep.
It is, isn't it? Yep.
Yep. So I met Mark at the AIS. I used to host the AIS Elite Rider Camps.
Yep.
For all the road bike riders, you know, like Troy Herfoss and Mick Kirkness, all those boys have been to our Elite Rider Camps and become friends with those guys. And then, met Mark at a level 2 coaching course. So he come along, wanted to become level 2. So we taught him, signed him off as a level 2, and then he said, come work for me. So I've just been working for all these different mobs as well as doing my own stuff for a few, you know, clubs that I deal with now.
Mate, what a career. It's like you go through, have a look at anyone that's watching, have a look at through your Instagram and have a look at this. You got an MT10 here, then you're racing off-road over here. You've done some stuff, mate.
Oh yeah, it is pretty cool. You know, having opportunities at one coaching school for Moto DNA, they brought out a brand new R1M. So we're sort of lapping around on an R1M, and just to get your head around the electronics is insane. I'm not the best road bike rider in the world, but I can get around pretty handy. And then, you know, you jump on this R1M with all the electronics and you just throw it into the corner, and it's got lean angles, and the Yamaha engineer at the time just said, just hold it flat. It's all good. And to get your head around that, from being an old school rider where we like to control, you can, you know, like you like to slide the bike in from the Supermoto days when we raced Supermoto, and to tip it in and hold the thing flat, and the bike does everything for you, and you're actually going up over the hill 20-30 k an hour faster than when you're riding it manually.
It makes no sense in your brain, does it, when you ride those?
No, it's crazy.
Like your brain to hand, that sort of relationship just disappears.
Yeah.
Once you get that, I think.
Yeah, I think it evens the rider ability out a lot.
For sure.
The electronics is leveling the playing field.
Yep. And I think, to me, and this might sound a bit backward, but I feel it's like grading the track.
Yep.
Like what you said about that with the off-road racing. Having the scale of electronics now for things like that is like grading the track now.
Exactly. I agree. Like, I love the electronics. I love the data. I love analysing stuff and making it better. And I realise that it is part of it. That's what it is now.
That's what racing is.
It's gone to that level, but now it's almost at you know, in MotoGP and all that it's almost like the best engineers are winning the race, not the actual best rider. Don't get me wrong, all those guys can ride motorbikes,
no doubt. Yep.
There's no denying that, but it's coming to the point where the best engineers, being an engineer or a team manager is becoming the most important role of a team nowadays.
Yeah, it is. It's and now having communication from MotoGP to the rider throughout the race. Yep. Like, choose this map and that. I see it, but I just don't understand. I understand it. I just don't see why they should do it. It should be back to the rider. You know, you've got an allocated 22-lap race. You need to manage yourself to get through that 22-lap race. Don't say that, you know, Marc Marquez is coming up behind you. Yep. Figure that out. He's going to see you pretty quickly anyway.
Yeah. So, it's the way all sports have evolved, and you know, we can't hold back. It's the way it is now, and I do agree, but it's just the way it is. We're not going to get rid of it. It's what they're used to now. So now you just got to go, hang on, that's what the rules are. Let's make it better and work out ways to do it. And creating that excitement of, hang on, we need to sit down in a team meeting and say, how do we win? How do we go better? Is involving more people than just the old school rider when, back in the day, it was just the rider that did everything.
Yep. Barry Sheen would wander out with a cigarette. It's just me now.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. We'd sort of go out and have a lot of fun, and the night before a Thumpernats race, they were the best years of racing ever. Yep. The late 90s were such fun years. We'd have fun. Everyone would sit around. Everyone share their information. Oh, yeah, you pull your forks through a little bit. It'll steer a little bit better. And you just, you'd help the young guys through. You'd help all the learners. Now there's none of that. It's like people tell you the wrong stuff nowadays, so you don't have an advantage. So I believe the sport's just gone to a new level like that.
Yeah, just turn that screw a little bit more, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me about Thumpernats. What was it about? What was it like?
The Thumpernats was amazing. We had our state championship.
Yep.
So, I was one of the front runners in all the state rounds. Yep. MacArthur Motorcycle Club, I won the club championship, I think 96 or something.
So was this still on the Husky at this point?
That was for Husqvarna, yep.
Was that a 250 Husky?
No, a Husky 610.
Oh, yeah, right.
So
yeah.
I was young and fit and healthy back then, so I was probably 70 kilos dripping wet on a 70 horsepower Husky.
610 Husky.
Yeah. So the bike that I had was actually one of Daryl King's race bikes.
Really?
So
cool.
I got handed that down from, like a stock 610 to one of their old race bikes. Yeah. And that thing was a weapon. Like, it was one of the proper Thumpernats bikes. And that bike was amazing. It was so good. It was, left-hand kickstart, so you really had to adopt techniques. But I could just come around a corner and wind that thing on and overtake anyone.
Wow. So you're talking 70-plus horsepower? Yeah,
that was a real deal, that bike.
What a weapon.
Yeah.
So you went from the 610 Husky into Thumpernats on the 400.
Yes.
What was the 400 Yemi like? That was the first year of second year, probably, the 400 Yemi. What was that like at the time?
Yeah, so the 400 Yemi, I converted over from Husky to Yamaha, and MacArthur Motorcycles gave me a bike. So I started to race that, and we started to go fast, and we were always up there. I was always there, and I spent my whole career traveling with Ken Wheeler, and we did the whole circuits. It's like a circus. All the pro riders, everyone would just sort of travel around. You'd meet them at towns, and that was fun. That was fun racing.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything like that now. There's too much restrictions. It's the tracks are too slow. Oh, yeah, you're only allowed an 18-metre tabletop. Yep. Where back then it was anything. I remember doing some racing, and I used to be pretty good at getting hole shots and starts. So one year I got 13 out of 18 hole shots.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was pretty good, pretty cool. But we just hit stuff flat out. And it was fast. It was really, really fast tracks. Now the tracks are so governed that, you can't go fast. You got to bring your average speed. The average speed of a track now is only allowed to be about 40 kilometres an hour. So they have to introduce a lot more tight stuff. And, if you're an old school style rider like us, we might not have the best technique. We'll sit over the back of the bike a little bit more because we're sort of going faster, and it wasn't all tight and finesse, like really finesse. They were fun races. They were honestly the funnest races when we could go real fast.
And you got a 70 horsepower bike to go fast on. That's a weapon, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where was that? What did they have Thumpernats? Condobolin was always a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Condobolin?
We never really did Condobolin. We did a few at Appin. We did Geelong, Melbourne, Conondale in Queensland. That was an awesome round. Conondale was good because you'd have so many undulations and off-camber corners, and they made it hard. It was hard, and it was rough. It was rough. Some of them tracks were rough. Rain, hail, or shine. I remember Kevin Williams would stand there, and he'd go, "Hey, it's off-road racing. If you don't like it, go." And some people would turn around and go and didn't want to get their bikes muddy, but I remember looking over and there was at least 20 or 30 bikes laying sideways in the mud, and
so it was always on.
It was always on. It was it's too wet. And once I think it was Albury Thumpernats, maybe it would have been maybe 98, 99. We parked in the street. All the teams down the street, and we had to ride up the street to the start gate and do the race in the mud. Like, it was just, that was fun.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a time that was for the sport, eh?
That was when motorbikes were huge.
Yep.
We didn't have the restrictions. We weren't frowned upon at the public, we make noise and dust and all that sort of stuff. Yep. And I honestly believe that with the way we're evolving now, taking all this motorsport, this technical side of it, in 10, 20, 30 years' time, our kids are not really going to have enough hand-eye coordination to drive cars safe. Where back then we rode in paddocks. We got bushland everywhere throughout Australia, but they're shutting it down to that. Oh, you can go and ride in the bush and just go for a ride. Or racing, they're making it harder. Our governing bodies are making everything harder because of insurance and litigation and everything. And I believe that, we need to relax it a little bit more. You go and race in the States and we're treated like royalty. You rock up there and it's just like you're a customer and here you go. Oh, it's good to have you here, and it's so welcoming. You come to a race in Australia with cams and like all our governing bodies. It's like you've got the wrong sticker on your bike. All of a sudden, bang, writing in your logbooks and stuff. So it's too political.
It is, yeah, and the whole thing, like the state forests and everything. The conversation you have with some of your mates is like, we need to get out. I do a lot of trail ride stuff. I run some tours. We need to get out and ride that part before it gets shut down. Or you need to ride that island. There's only one island left to ride. We need to get out and ride it before it gets shut down. Yep. This should never be the case. If you've still got a registered vehicle, why would you be shut out of a forest, a state forest?
Exactly, I agree with you. We're just got, they're handing too much, power to the national parks, and they're just going, nah, shut everything down because it's the easiest. The easiest option isn't the best for the big picture. We need to get out and enjoy the bush. Obviously, we want to weed out the idiots that go and burn cars and steal stuff and
dump all that crap out there.
Yep, that's take your rubbish. Everyone take your rubbish, clean up, and in America, everyone picks on some of the stuff there, but that's amazing. You go out there, no one litters. So they've got like off-highway recreational areas that just thousands and thousands of acres, and you can go and do whatever you want. Sometimes it gets a little bit dangerous with head-ons or whatever, but most of the time you can see dust or you can see what's going on, but everyone takes their own rubbish away, and it's clean and it's not regulated. You don't have to pay money to go there. It's just open. And they've got that much land out there. That's what they can do. But in Australia, everything's shut down. Everything's got a gate on it. No, you can't go in here. You can't go in there. So it's catering for those couple of idiots.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's pandering for them.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree any more. It's so frustrating to see here because we're one of the lucky places that's got space.
Yep,
we've got the space. We're like America. We've got so much space here. We could ride anywhere and we'll do anything. And same with families growing up. You can't take your kids out to a park now without potentially. I hope we don't get fined for having. It's stupid. Like back when I was learning, or when you were learning doing the mini carners and that, you could go anywhere and ride. You could ride in the local car park of a shopping centre and not have a trouble. Now it'd be like, hopefully it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
frustrating.
Exactly.
So where'd you go from Thumpernats? You just went straight into coaching. Coaching was work.
Yeah, so coaching. I've been a crane driver, rigger my whole life.
Yep.
So since I left school, I've driven mobile cranes and rigging and all that sort of stuff, advanced rigging.
Yep.
So on the off, I'd always go coaching on weekends.
Yep.
And then from there, from Thumpernats, I went back into cars. So I've still got the original 74 GC Galant that I built when I was 16 years old.
So is this the yellow one?
Yes.
So that's the original car that you had then?
Yeah, so I built that car
Yeah.
when I was 16 with my dad, and then for when was it? One of my birthdays, I said to Dad, we're going to race Targa Tasmania.
Nice.
And so my dad come and we went down. I took my best mate Garth Hannaford down, and my dad, and we went and raced Targa Tasmania in the car that I built when I was 16 years old. So
Hey, what a cool feeling.
it was cool. We blew up a couple of motors. We blew up 3 motors, but Garth worked full time, and built motors for us overnight, and I jumped in and raced the stages and so we got back into cars, and then raced Supermoto.
Yep.
So I've pretty much raced everything, and love Supermoto. Supermoto is the best form of racing on 2 wheels because it's it's tough. You go on road and off road, and traction levels. You got a heap of grip, then nothing.
Yep.
Did quite well in Supermoto, so I rode Pro Supermoto, and then everything went really bad when we went to a race in Sydney at Oran Park, and our truck got stolen. They stole all our gear, everything. So that was pretty much the last time I rode Supermoto. I never recovered from racing that. I'd invested a lot of money, all our spare wheels, all our leathers, toolbox, everything got taken. And at the time, the police turned around and pretty much said, "Oh, well, your stuff's gone. If you want to live, forget about it." And it was just like, it's just not fair.
It's not.
And, I tried to get up there, and I did a few Supermoto riding schools for Mark Avard and a few of those guys. I was good mates with all those. I used to race against Herfoss, and those guys are legends. We had so much fun those years.
The sport was peaking, hey. 5, 6, 7, it was huge.
It was. That was when it was massive. Then Husqvarna come in and, elevate it to a next level. Paul Feeney come in and they pumped a heap of money into it. Then Yamaha started pumping money. They had Shannon Johnson and all those big-time Yamaha road racers coming in. And then it was just, for racing, it was awesome because we'd have every discipline. We'd have flat trackers like Kirkness, and then, and Herfoss, and then just every discipline. So they had sections where they were really good at, and then there were sections where the motocrossers were good at, and then we'd hit the big jumps. And then, the road bike riders would, wipe the jumps out, and the jumps got smaller and smaller and smaller. And so it's the way it evolved. It was fun.
It was good. And you had Alex Gobert had only just come home from the States.
Yep.
He had their Aprilia, probably the best supermoto bike that could have been built at the time, the Aprilias.
Yep.
They came in. There was a lot of good stuff happening then, wasn't there?
There was. It was definitely fun years.
Did you do the Olympic Park one?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Yeah, so I
Down
raced...
the gutter.
Sorry?
Down the gutter.
Yeah, it was
up and down gutters and all through.
Yeah, there was tracks and stuff. So I raced that round. That was pretty good. Like everyone was there. You know, Craig Anderson, Danny Ham, it was everyone there.
Yeah.
So that was such a good round. We had a ball there. I can't remember where I finished there. I think I was inside the top 10.
And had a naming right sponsor. Like to just look at Supermoto now, to think like then it was like a proper full TV packaged event in Australia.
Yep.
You can't fathom it now.
Yeah, back then, like Mark Avard and Motorcycle Sportsman Club in Queensland, they put everything into that. Avard worked so hard to bring that to the level it was. With lots of help, lots of people helped and brought it up because it was fun. Then it got to the point where it sort of just dwindled away. I don't even really know why it dwindled away, but it got to the point where, you needed to spend, like a lot of money to race because the big teams were using brand new Michelins every single race.
Yep.
Where I, as a privateer or, a semi-sponsored privateer, we'd use one set of tyres the whole race meeting.
Yep.
And there was our second a lap, you know. So
Straight away, yep.
Straight away, a brand spanking new tyre every single race was a second a lap. And then you're sort of competing with, you know, it's getting harder and harder. And the technology and, you know, we were getting slowly left behind. And I remember when Troy went to factory Husky back then, you know, he just jumped from one level to three steps
huge.
up.
Yeah, it was massive, wasn't
You
it?
know, that we were all similar, and then all of a sudden, those guys just went 3 steps, and it was just like everyone's like, "Wow, where do we go from here?"
Do you remember when the Michelins came in?
Yeah.
That was the same deal. It was like you've come from here to, mate, that was incredible when they came. Those ones that had the little U in the middle, you know? That was, it was huge.
Yep. And then they tried the control tyre thing. Remember that
Maxxis.
1 year they tried the Maxxis thing? And everyone was going out and crashing, and we struggled with them because we were, I think, you know, we were Dunlop at the time. We were Pirelli at the time. And, you know, that's what we were used to and loved them, and they were awesome. And then all of a sudden we're told we have to use this other tyre. And it wasn't that it was bad, but it was the one tyre supplier inflated the prices at the same time as well. So we were paying more for
a control tyre.
For a control tyre than we could buy our other tyres. And it's just like, hang on, that only lasted about 12 months.
Yeah, it didn't last long. And then there was a glut of them. I remember they were selling them for like $30 a set afterwards. And they used to have the practice nights out at Ipswich here. And I remember the first time I went on to them of the night time out at Ipswich on the Maxxis. And they've improved a lot, obviously, to nowadays. But, yeah, just coming through and it's just on the gas, it's like just spinning like crazy. And I was working for Metzler and Pirelli at the time. So we had Metzler, remember they used to make the Supermoto tyre? So we had the Metzlers on, and then that was basically like like a Supercourse sort of deal. And, so different going to the controlled Maxxis.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's not that they're a bad tyre. It was just we weren't used to it. We weren't set up. They were different. And, you know, like we'd have all this racing data from, you know, the other tyres. And let's face it, anything to do with slick tyres is like any racing to do with slick tyres is expensive. It's set up, it's intense, it's responsive. So you just got to have the best. If you want to win in that stuff, you got to have the best.
And a lot of it, slick tyres and that, is just personal preference, eh? Like what could be good for them and their setup could be totally different for you, even on the same bike, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. It was a cool time, though.
It was. It was so much fun.
So tell me about the Glant. What was the engine package in that?
So,
to go through a few.
The Glant, when we first got the car, we were sponsored. Luckily enough, we got a really good engine sponsor, and he built us a sprint car motor that was untouchable. The thing was awesome.
In a Glant.
In a Glant. So it was a sprint car motor. It ended up being a 2-litre, same as like a Mitsubishi, same as a Sigma motor. Running twin Webers. And we'd run it on race fuel, avgas, and all that stuff. And that was about 130, 140 horsepower.
What would a Glant come out with? Maybe 50?
Probably 35.
What a weapon that is then.
So it weighed 800 kilos and with 130 horsepower. And back then it was a fast car. They were pretty healthy. And we used to win lots of races. And my dad was into it. He was really good and smart with that stuff. And then we went to a 2.6 motor, 2.6 Sigma Astron motor, twin Webers. And then didn't really have a lot of luck with that motor. We used to crack a lot of blocks. We were sort of stretching them beyond their capabilities. We found that we didn't have a lot more horsepower, but we had a lot more torque. So out of the 2.6, we had a lot more torque, but we didn't even have more horsepower.
Right.
With a heavier motor. So the front of the car was a little bit heavier. So we had to, change the setup a fair bit. So when we raced Targa Tasmania with that Glant, we ran a 2.6 Sigma motor because it's to do with classic rules. On twin Webers, we had twin 45 Webers, and I got an engine builder to build me a motor, and he was a lemon. I got that. We spent massive money on it, and it was just a lemon. I jumped in this car, there's something wrong, it's not right. And they just tampered with the timing and, the cam timing and all that stuff and just never got it right. Then went down there, blew the motor up on the second day. We qualified 6th in Classic out of 100 and something cars.
Wow.
In like a road stage through the streets. So we qualified really well. So that put us right up the pointy end of the field. So we were racing, we were seated with some big time cars like Skylines and Lamborghinis, and we were in this little 130 horsepower Galant seated with, Audi R8s.
Wow.
And that was a fun time. And then I just come over one rise and we were sideways and in the air, and I just touched down under full power and just exploded the motor.
Oh, no. Yep.
So my best mate, Garth Hannaford, he rebuilt the motor overnight. We went to the other side of Tasmania, picked up a motor, come back and built the motor, got the car running again with 20 minutes. And that motor that he built overnight had way more horsepower. Like, we went out and just were killing it. But unlucky enough, because it's such a big motor, we couldn't, and the stage and the way it worked, we couldn't retorque the head down.
Yep.
Because it's such a big piston in that motor. It's a massive piston. Like, it's a 2.64 cylinder, so it's a big piston.
Big capacity for a 4.
Yeah. So you really got to torque the head down, in stages, like a few heat cycles. Never torque the head down, and we blew a head gasket, and then, water got in and made it worse. And we ended up finishing. So we finished Targa Tasmania. Nice. In that Galant was pretty cool. And then when I got home, I said, you know what, I'm going big horsepower. So I went and bought a Mitsubishi Evo Motor, got that built, and it's a 2.4 Evo stroker. That's got about 500 horsepower now. So the car weighs 1,000 kilos, 500 horsepower. Just got a 6-link rear end in it, adjustable roll center, so I can dial it all in from the cab.
So she's a full race car now.
It's a full blown race car, and now like full dog box, all that stuff. But it's always broken. it's never ending. And that's a toy. I took it out of door-to-door racing and went to tarmac rally because they were just hitting each other in door-to-door, like in all the the proper races. And the car's too rare. There's 136 of that model brought into Australia in 1974.
Yeah, right.
So it's a super rare car.
Proper classic car. Yep.
And so I was like, oh, well, at least if I crashed it in Targa Tasmania or something, it's my fault. But when someone runs into you, that was going to not, sort of go down too well.
And you've still got all original door skins, like it's all proper.
Yeah, it's all as per I built it when I was 16, and but it's gone through a lot of changes. Like it's just never ending, evolved, and if I ever get it finished and do it properly, it's a fast car.
Yeah, sounds like it, hey?
It is pretty crazy. We were doing a test day at Queensland Raceway, and I pulled out onto the straight and drove past the Porsche GT3.
Holy crap.
So it gets there fast, but then next thing you know, it's broken. So
And what breaks? Is it the motor, or is it just still trying to refine the build?
Yeah, the car wasn't meant to have that much power. I made a big mistake going with that much power. I should have just put a Evo motor with some twin Webers and kept it simple. Instead, I went too crazy. Turbo's too big, and then the gearbox kept breaking, then clutches, and then output shafts, and then diffs, and then you're just moving the weak link around the car almost to the point where the brakes aren't good enough now. Like, I've got Skyline R34 brakes on it, and they're not even good enough.
Oh, jeez.
It's like now it's got to go to a proper race brake, and it's just never ending.
So if that was a complete, like, once you're happy with it, that's a fast circuit car, eh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hands down. Like, the rear end, it's got a solid axle rear end with 2 degrees of camber and 2 degrees of camber and 2 mil of toe in. So it's the real deal.
Yeah, she's a proper racer.
So the billet hubs, the rear hubs and that, it's got $25,000-$30,000 worth of rear end in that car. And don't tell my wife, but
don't listen.
She won't listen. But I've put a lot of money and time into that, but it's been over a long period of time, so it's not. It's
just how it happens, hey?
It's evolved.
Have you ever taken it out to Morgan Park?
No, I haven't done Morgan Park. No.
You ever driven there at all in anything?
Yeah, I did Morgan Park. I did Aussie Driver Search.
What was that?
That was like you get to drive a V8 supercar, and the winner gets a free race, gets a season.
Oh, yeah?
That all, fell in a big heap. So I qualified for the final in a V8 supercar. That all fell in a heap, and they went broke, and the winner, sort of missed out on everything. So that's another big story. But yeah, that was the only time I'd driven Morgan Park was in a V8 supercar.
That's a fun track.
It is.
Really, really fun track. They actually improved it for supercar testing a few years ago, but I think they ran them backwards there.
Yeah, right.
Or something. They ran them a bit different. There was something happened there because they took the 888 cars out a few times.
Yep.
And did it approved. But it'd be fast there in a supercar.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of people there too. It was crazy. I think the only ones that qualified on that day was myself and Brock Finke.
Yeah, right.
So we qualified and then went to the finals down there at Goulburn.
Wakefield.
At Wakefield.
Yep.
And then I just got back from Mexico. So we'd just raced the Baja 1000 in Mexico, and then I flew in, and then the next day flew straight down to qualify for that, for the final.
Yep.
And then, we found out the week leading up to it, there was people that were hiring that car for the day, full day rate, just doing thousands and thousands of laps. And I just come off a race of being smooth and no intensity,
yep.
Just being consistent and no intensity. So when I jumped back onto the road and in the V8 supercar, I didn't really have the intensity there because I'd just been, the last 2 years, I've been driving smooth without
yep.
intensity and just consistency.
Yep.
So I didn't really have that intensity for a 1 or 2 lap sprint, but still went pretty good. Went all the way to the end and missed out. So
they're a fun car to drive, a supercar, isn't it?
Oh, they are pretty fun. They're raw, they just wheel spin a lot. It is pretty cool. So I actually raced Targa Tasmania for BMW.
Going to ask you about that. How'd that come about?
Oh, So yeah, what happened, because I was a driving instructor,
yep.
They put on a big, M2 BMW launch when the M2 BMW come out. So I went to, they invited me to go down there and be an instructor, and then I got down there and I ended up being paired up with a couple of the CEO of BMW and one of the head engineers. And it got to the point where we were sort of paired up and we were sort of just, spent a week with these people, and they just, you jump in, you drive this stage, and I spent more time driving, these brand new cars, like
nice.
M6s. I was in a E46 CSL, like the original BMW owned CSL. Yep. So when they said to me, you cannot crash this car. This car is like, money cannot buy this car.
Yep.
So I was in that car, which was old school, like the SMG paddle shift gearbox. And
so I do remember that car. It came to the Sydney Motor Show about 2002.
Yep.
E46.
Yep.
What was the CSL?
The CSL was the racing carbon fiber version. So it had carbon roof, no radio, nothing. It was carbon fiber
Just
dash.
a proper race car for the road.
Yeah, it was super light. Carbon seats. They had the rear end, like the rear pickup, the diff pickup, all braced and carbon fiber airboxes, and it was just like a full blown race version of the E46, like the M3. So it was like about 5 levels up from an M3.
Oh, what a cool car to drive!
It was.
Yep.
Believe it or not, that car got more attention than any car down there.
Really? Even like Lambos or things like that?
Yeah. Oh, for the BMW followers, that E46 got so much attention because a lot of BMW enthusiasts really love that car. And it was just like, there's a CSL, because they are so rare, like a proper legit CSL.
One. Yep.
Nowadays, you see an M3 with a CSL body kit and a CSL wheels, but they're just replicas. But to have that proper CSL was
huge.
Was cool, and to race that around Tassie for 2 weeks was awesome.
That'd be such a balanced car, hey?
It was amazing. It was a bit old school, a bit raw.
Yep.
You know, you'd sort of, if you give it too much power, they'd wheel spin, and you could turn the power up or down.
Yeah, right.
You could turn the shift up or down. So if you want more like a harder shift, you can turn the power of the shift, like the paddle shift.
Pretty cool for 2002.
Yeah.
2000, somewhere around that, wouldn't it, I think?
Yeah, it was 2002, 2003, I think.
Was it?
That car, the year model of it.
Because that was the highlight car for the Sydney show.
Yeah.
I remember that being on the stand at the Sydney show, and that was, wow. Because E46 for me is probably the best looking M3.
Oh, I agree. If I could buy one of them, I'd buy one of them.
I reckon they're the ones, you know. So
yeah, to do that BMW
cool.
thing was really cool.
Yep.
You know, I was down there with Stephen Richards, Harry Bates,
Yep.
you know, so all the top names, we were all there, and just, you know, we spent 2 weeks living with each other and racing, and we were in a big group of about 15 cars.
nice.
So yeah, we'd had to clean the cars after every stage, like every night. We'd go and we'd all clean, have a bit of fun. There was a few professional co-drivers like navigators and that there, but that was a fun time. That was such a good event. It was massive for the M2 launch.
Did you get to drive the M2?
Yeah, yep.
As well?
So
Yep.
we drove the M2. We just swapped around. We drove all the cars, you know, the M2,
cool.
M3, M4s, M6. So, but my allocated car was the CSL.
The M2, a lot of people say they reckon that's one of the best ones. So
The M2 manual was a fun car.
Really?
Yeah. So they had the auto, but we had the M2 manual, and we were at one of the tracks down there in Tasmania somewhere. I can't remember what. And we did laps, and we had to sort of teach, you know, people how to drive them and all that sort of stuff.
So
and make
did
sure.
Did they have customers come on this as well? Or
No, it was only media. So they only had a few of the press.
Yep.
So they had the media in the M2s,
Yep.
and then they had the real high-profile CEOs and directors of BMW worldwide come with us in like the CSL, the i8. We had the i8 there, so I did a few stages in the i8, the hybrid.
Yeah.
And we'd mix it around. So yeah, that was cool.
How is it competing in Tassie?
Target Tasmania is so fun.
Does it still go?
Yeah,
Still on? Yep.
Still races. It's just to be able to race on streets that you sort of see out in the hinterland there, similar sort of streets, and be able to go as fast as you can is pretty special.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's expensive. It is a really expensive sport. I think that 1 year to do that race cost me about 50 or 60 grand.
In the Glen?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I had the lowest budget out of everyone there.
Wow.
But it's expensive. It's a big deal. But once you do it, it's fun. Tarmac racing is definitely awesome fun, because everyone thinks tarmac, just racing on the road. It's not quite like that, in the way that you go through so many different traction levels. You know, you go down into a gully with canopies and there's moss on the road, and you're just come off a ridge with hot tyres into ice sections.
Wow.
And people were spinning and off cliffs, and there's Ferraris off a cliff, and Porsches just laying on their side, and cars with so many electronics still on their roof, and
so it's carnage.
Some of it was carnage.
Yep.
If you're an idiot, you're not going to last too long out there. You've got to be really reserved. And Jim Richards, I was there Jim Richards was an idol of mine growing up.
Same.
You know, just a legend, gentleman Jim. And I said, this is my first race. I just approached him, and I was scared, and I just approached him. I said, this is my first race. Have you got any advice? And he goes, don't try and win it in the first day, and drive at 50%.
Straight away.
And I was like, you know what, that makes sense. And then a couple of stages I was getting really fast, and I was like, nah, need to pull back, need to reset. As soon as I had a little moment, I think in that whole 2,000 kilometre race, or it's 2,000 kilometre, but probably 500 race kilometres, I think I only really had one moment that I was scared that I was going to run wide.
Yep.
But that was just rushing my entry and just lose concentration, not looking where I needed to go.
And was it over a cliff or was it?
It was into a straight into a rock wall.
Not good.
No, it would have put us out.
I think that's one of the things too. Is with racing, anything like you could probably count the moments, big moments on one hand that you're out of control.
Yeah.
Out of control, I guess. That'd be right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. What I say, and when I got Brett Comiskey in the car and, the long races in America, I navvy for Brett, and then I drive whenever we, have a long race. So Brett drives and then I drive. So when I'm in the car with Brett, we always talk about if we've had a moment, we say reset.
Yep.
So you've had a moment, reset. It
Back to
means
neutral.
Start again. Forget about everything that we've done before, and start again, and don't make that same mistake. Normally, when you have an accident, it's normally after 2 or 3 moments because you haven't reset enough. So Brett and I work really well with that. Hey, we're getting loose. Reset.
Yep.
And it's like check up. And we won an American championship. We won the Best in the Desert championship using those morals.
Because a lot of people wouldn't, I guess, hey?
Well, a lot of people just go for it the whole time.
Yep.
And racing in America, you can't go for it the whole time. Yeah, there's been times where I would love to just hold that thing flat and just hit stuff, but the car's not going to last, and it's not going to, it's going to, like cause a DNF. For us, DNF wasn't even allowed. We weren't allowed to talk DNF. We weren't allowed to talk negativity.
Yep.
I brought to the team, if anyone talks negative, they're out. And now we'll say something and it's like, that's negative, and you sort of think, yeah, it is too. And then you just go, now think of the positives. So being able to reset when you have a moment and then not be negative towards it has helped us winning.
How'd you start your relationship with Brett? And is Brett a good, was he a good driver? Is he been doing off-road stuff forever, or what's he sort of go?
Yeah, Brett's raced UTVs forever, for a lot longer than any of us. So he's been into it for a long time.
So he's right in, hey?
Like right in.
Yeah.
Loves it.
Cool.
Loves it. He's an absolute legend. So what's happened with Brett is he's come along. I was with Yamaha, and I was doing quite well with Yamaha, winning lots and lots of races. And then we sort of just become friends, and he'd come up and we'd talk, and then we sort of just become friends at race. I don't even know how. We just were talking more and more, and then next thing you know, we ended up being pitted next to each other. We'd just rock up late at night, and that's where we were pitted. We'd wake up in the morning, he was next to us, and then we travelled the whole Australian side-by-side circuit together. So, he had his car, I had my car, and we'd just travel together and share drivers. Sometimes when we're doing a big trip to South Australia or something, we'd have 3 or 4 drivers and share cars, and that's how we sort of become friends. And then he said to me, come over and race Vegas to Reno in my new car. I bought a Can-Am over there, an unlimited car, and come over and race and help us out and help us set up. I said, all right, game on. So I bought a ticket, flew over there, and end up going in that race, and I did a stage of that race for Brett. So he did the first stage, and another driver did a short stint, and then I did the final.
Oh, right.
And since then, it was just like we've been best mates for, we've been sort of, going really well and piecing it all together. Yeah,
and it's just grown and as a relationship, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's how it evolved, and then I was quite passionate about the sport, and I really want to win, and he likes that as well, and we started to get good results and winning, and we're working out how to win, and we weren't cheating, we were just doing the best, and we'd go over there and get up them because something wasn't quite right, and then we sort of went through a couple of prep companies to get to that level where we can go, no, that's not right, this is what we want. And now we're back in Australia with all this COVID, so we've set up a race shop in Yatala. We've got all our cars, everything there, and we work with Toby Price a lot. So we're doing a lot of stuff together, and that's how it's evolved.
And now I think having both of you guys, Brett yourself, Toby, it's sort of grown off-road racing here a bit too, hasn't it? It's pushed it along maybe a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We come back and a few people were, oh, yeah, they race in America, you know, what would they know? And we come back and we won Goondiwindi 400. Then we won St. George. We had a bit of a problem at Don River, but we've had some really good results back in Australia too. And they're now like, oh, wow, we've taken it to the next level with the way our cars look. Everything's prepped right. The team all wear our team shirts, our logos. We spend extra time with that. Joel Whitaker from 5-3, he wraps our car, and the car looks amazing. And the logos and the wrap, and we're getting exposure like that. In return, we're getting sponsors come on board with us too to help us out. So we're factory BF Goodrich tyres. So I'm the distributor for BF Goodrich race tyres now. So if anyone wants BF Goodrich off-road race tyres, they buy through myself. There's only myself and one other dealer in Australia that can sell the proper, off-road KR race tyres.
Wow, I didn't know that. So you're housing them here? Like it's all local? Yeah, cool.
Yep, so we've got them in stock. We got the big brands in stock now. So send me a message if anyone wants some BFG race tyres.
That's a huge asset to have, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
They're the premium tyre in that world, aren't they? Really?
Definitely. Yeah. They've got in America they got 70-80% market share.
Really, is it that much?
Yeah. So. They do a lot of things right. In Mexico, everyone runs the BFG tyres in Mexico. There are a number of reasons, because they last, as well as they've got some really good pit support, and Michelin BFG are really proactive with their marketing and being at races, and they're there.
Yep.
But the thing that sells it's the product itself. It is hands down the best tyre. The compounds, everything about it is just next level. Look at Toby. He's slapped some BFGs on a near stock Can-Am and went out and won, quite a few things lately. So it goes to show that the tyre with the driver, it is a package, but the tyre does make a lot of difference.
Speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and tied up obviously now with Michelin as the brand owner, isn't it? Basically, that's right.
Michelin, own BFG, yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, as I say, I didn't know that sort of side of it, but it makes sense. You guys are off-road racers.
Yeah.
And that's the market.
Yeah.
Tell me, you've done a lot of different motorsport events in the world. What has been a highlight?
The highlight for me, there's been quite a few.
Because you've done everything.
Yeah, so one of the big highlights, Targa Tasmania, in the car that I built with my dad and my best mate. At 40 odd years old was pretty special.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome. And then to race the Baja 1000, the first time we raced the Baja 1000 was just like, wow. So the Baja 1000 is the next biggest off-road event other than Dakar. So Dakar is insane intense, but in a way Baja is just as hard because they start and they finish. And you've got to do 1,200 miles. The first year we did 1,200 miles, which is, 1,800 kilometres of racing straight. So, in Australia, they turn around and we go and do a club, like an Australian Championship round, and they make you stop and have a half-hour lunch break.
Really?
It is it's an endurance race, and then all of a sudden, this race, you've got to stop and have a half-hour lunch break.
It's like you're driving on the road with a logbook.
Yeah. And in Mexico, it's like, just do it, finish.
You got to figure it out.
Just work it out. Go. And that's what makes it fun. They're just, it's just insane. So those two events, for me, are major standouts. And then the last one was the Mint 400. Earlier on in the year when we were racing the two Aussie trophy trucks side by side down the start of the Mint down ramp was pretty cool.
And people, like a lot of motorcycle fans of what we're getting listeners of, but a lot of people don't know, like that is like one of the marquee events for off-road racing in the world, isn't it?
The Mint 400.
What's the Mint 400? Parker?
Yep.
They're probably the two really iconic ones for America, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely Parker is pretty cool.
Yep.
The Mint's the biggest.
Yep.
And then Vegas Torino. So Vegas Torino is probably the one of the best events you can do, but it's nowhere near as good for spectators.
Yep.
You got a chase crew, so you got chase cars. It's the big picture.
Yep.
And that's like Vegas Torino is 580 miles. And we started at 2:30 in the afternoon, so you're racing all day, all night, and
Yep.
might finish about 3 or 4 in the morning.
Holy crap.
So
580 miles. It's 1,000 Ks.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're finishing at 3, 4 in the morning,
Yep.
which is pretty intense. So that's a really good race as well for an American race. But the Mint is pretty cool because the spectators can go. The street party in Vegas,
Yep.
Fremont Street is just packed.
Yep.
It takes 6 hours to go through tech.
Seriously.
Yep. So we push the cars through tech, and
Yep.
it takes 6 hours because you go past maybe about 300 or 400 vendors, and you could virtually build a whole car going through tech.
Mate, that's unreal.
Yeah, down Vendor Row, it's insane, and it's in old school part of Vegas.
Yeah.
So there's zip lining over your head, and there's just like the Fremont Street Freak Show, and it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. That's the real America.
Yeah,
When you see that America event, that's the real America event.
it is.
How'd you get a relationship with King?
With Brett King, we bought some King shocks for one of our cars over there. And it was just like, oh, yeah, everyone uses Fox on them and that. And then Brett King come on board, and we got a good deal on King.
Yep.
Then we started to make some little changes, and we said, I need to make some valving changes. And we book in a test day with the King engineers.
Yep.
And we were there, and I'd go out. Yeah, I need a bit more high-speed rebound. Need a bit of this, need a bit of that, make the changes, come back. And they sort of said to me, well, it sounds like you sort of know what you're doing a little bit. So, like, what do we think we do here? And then we just evolved. And we got into, sort of, say, a level 8 sort of, setting of shock now, which is pretty crazy. And then we had people ring Brett King and say, hey, Brett, we want what the Aussies are racing. We want the shocks that CMS are racing. Those guys
Yep.
are fast through the rough stuff. And then Brett goes, yeah, no worries. Brett rings me and said, oh, yeah, well, we're going to sell your valving. I said, all good, So from there, we've been sponsored. So
Yep.
Brett is a legend. We've worked really well with Brett King and to develop him. And obviously, they've put a lot of development in it, but we've helped with the setup as well.
Yep.
Of the shock and what works and what lasts and that. So our data and our input, because one of our cars over there, Brett Comiskey said, we're going to build the best UTV in the world. He goes, build your dream car. So we said, all right, went to Lone Star and sat down with Lone Star, and we built this car that was insane. The electronics in that car are unbelievable. We've got suspension potentiometers on each corner so we could get shock data, so we could see on the dash that we'd go through a set of whoops and we had 50 mil shock shaft left through a set of whoops at 60 mile an hour. And then we'd go through faster and we could see where we would set the car up. So I would relay that data with Brett King.
Yep.
Hey, we're at this ride, we got sort of this much shock shaft left going through the blah, 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 and rates of shock speed. And he's like, wow,
Yeah.
we need to work together. And from then, we sort of haven't really paid for any shocks since.
Mate, BFG, King, like iconic brands.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, and to have those big sponsors on board is massive, and to have those big sponsors to believe in us is what's special. We're not the savviest team with social media and all that sort of stuff, and we haven't got 4 billion followers and that, but when we go out on race day, we get noticed and we get results. We've won 2 world championships.
Yep.
And we won the Best in the Desert championship. One of the races, we were in Unlimited there, and we started dead last, like 50-odd cars, and finished second outright.
Wow.
Behind Phil Blurton, like carving through the field. So we got noticed in the by the right people that with the direct marketing. So that was awesome.
There's a company called Mad Media over there.
Yep.
They do so much good stuff with the off-road scene.
Yeah, they do.
Over there. I forget the guy's name, but my job's video production, so I look at other people's stuff, and he does some unreal work with the off-road stuff over there, eh?
Yeah, there's some really good marketing companies over there. You know, we use Dirt Media. We've used Mad Media before.
Yep.
That's, the Martellis and all that.
Matt Martelli.
Yep. So, we sort of dealt with those guys. I'm good friends with Killian, one of the guys there.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's lots of good marketing companies over there. Do a pretty awesome job.
Sounds like we've got renovations happening through here for some reason. What an experience to get into this, from moto and whatnot into like one of the most crazy forms of racing.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's the way it's evolved has been pretty awesome.
Yep.
To come out, and they say it takes 20 years to become an overnight success. I've been working at this my whole life to get a good paying job that's something I love doing and something that I'm good at. And having Brett, Comiskey from CMS Racing believe in me and trust me with his $500,000 car.
Yeah.
So when you drive, something worth $500,000 or $1 million, like the $1 million trophy truck, you're sort of just going, hang on, if things go wrong here, that's pretty insane. So we don't drive at 100%. We drive to finish.
It's a bit of a pinch yourself thing at some point, I reckon.
The first Baja 1000, Brett and I were looking at each other at the start, and Brett goes, "This is happening." I mean, it's just like, it is.
Yeah.
And then we were just so uptight for the first 20 miles. It was just, like making mistakes, and like I was making wrong calls because Brett was driving, and then, we ran off a cliff and nearly died and all that sort of stuff, but we didn't. And then we said reset, and started to get into it. And then we started to go really well. Then Brett got out, and another driver did his stint, and then I had to rest. I had probably 2 or 3 hours sleep. Then I jumped in and did my stage was 200 miles out in the middle of nowhere with no recovery. So I was quite reserved out there, and then at the end of that race, we finished the first Baja 1000. The team that we were with had been racing that race for 10 years and never finished.
Seriously?
Yep. And when we get to La Paz down there near Cabo, the bottom of Mexico, we said, "Where's the accommodation?" We crossed the finish line at 4 or 5 in the morning, and they said, we said to him, "Where's the accommodation?" And he goes, we didn't book any accommodation because we've never made it this far. Yes. So
we're a vote of confidence.
We're all looking, going, "What do you mean? Like,
yeah,
where do we stay?" So we're asking people, "You got any spare rooms?" And we ended up just all piling in one bedroom, and we had people on the floor, and people sleeping in cars, and people sleeping in the race car, and
holy crap!
And then in the morning, we just got the shits and went down and spent a week at Cabo, and just stayed the week at Cabo.
What happens once you're in Cabo? You've got your vehicles there and everything. Is there one with a trailer, or is there a truck come pick them up? Or
no, you got to drive the whole stint all the way back. So you got to take the whole
everything,
party, truck, trailer, chase trucks, the whole lot back to America, which is probably a 22-hour drive.
Man, what an event!
Yeah, it's amazing.
Where's your stuff in America? Are you based out of California?
Yeah, our team shop is Chris Redden at R3 Fabrications. He's out at Beaumont, out near Yucaipa, which is about an hour and a half out of LAX.
All right. Yep.
So we fly into LAX, we catch an Uber to Yucaipa, and then spend the week testing and setting up there. We go to Barstow a lot, and Plaster City down in San Diego. We do that a fair bit. Then go and travel to the races. Most of the races are in Nevada. So most of the races we go and stay in Vegas. Yep. Most of the time we stay at the Golden Nugget in Vegas.
Oh yeah, yep.
Which is pretty cool.
Same deal, another iconic sort of venue, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you get to see some things. That's another part of this sport. It's not you're not racing Appen each weekend. You know, you get to see some different places.
Yeah, definitely. To from the days winning the MacArthur Motocross Club and the old Dargle Club days with winning B grade Hawkesbury Club Championship back in probably 92 or something, 93. From those days to where we are now, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. Back then, you would never have thought that I'd be racing trophy trucks in America.
Traveling the world, racing them.
Yeah.
Racing venues, what's been the best racing venue? Is it the Baja?
Yeah, as what I love about Baja is just intense, and it's just make your own rules. We're so restricted here, and as we've said quite a few times, but over there's no restrictions. It's make shit work, and think for yourself, and that makes your spatial awareness, everything around you is just so much more intense.
You come alive.
You do. You're on edge. It's a natural high that you're on because you're just doing something that you're so not used to. That's just like we're driving a pre-runner buggy down the main street. You drive it through Macca's drive-through, and if you did that in Australia, you get locked up and go to jail. And
straight away.
You get to do something like that, like drive a buggy down the street.
Yep.
In Australia is equivalent to killing someone. In America and Mexico, it's normal.
It's just day-to-day life.
It's just life. And so we're driving down the street thinking we're committing a crime. We're looking over our shoulder like we're going to get arrested.
Even some of the pre-run vehicles, like some of the pre-run vehicles would be like the most built trucks that we could ever see here. Hey.
Yeah, that's right. So some of the proper pre-runners, the Mckenzie pre-runner and all that stuff, they're $1 million bucks.
For a pre-run vehicle.
Yeah, and they're pretty much race cars with aircon.
Yep.
So the pre-runners are a proper race car with an air conditioner and a window.
The new truck that you're building, that'll be a full aircon rig, won't it?
No, it's a race car.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, it's all open cab.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, what a dusty environment, eh?
Yeah, well, we got helmet pumpers. We're pumped into air, and we got clean air blowing in. We got drink systems in our helmets and that. So it's not really that bad.
Yeah.
The downfall with having a windscreen and like a pre-runner is you go through a mud or dust, and you're just constantly cleaning the window. Where with an open cab, you're just constantly cleaning your visor.
Just your visor.
Yeah.
Can you ever see, when you're talking about the suspension stuff, do you remember the years of, I think it was World Superbike, they had adaptive suspension technology? Can you ever see that coming across? Where you have like suspension change on the go? You're saying potentiometers for measuring before, but the other way around for electric adjustment.
They've got them now. So the new Can-Am and the new Polaris's come out with that.
Like fly-by-wire, like on the go.
So it's on the go, measuring. It reads in front. It's got a little scanner, reads in front. But it's not developed enough yet. Most people are taking those shocks off and going back to manual setup. Simply because it's making a change at a time when you're used to the car doing something, then all of a sudden it's making a change. So you can't get that consistency and that consistent feel. When they try the trail active front diffs and all that sort of stuff, you come in, you feel the front pulling and torque steering. When we found that we just took all that out and just went with an open front diff because you could get it. And when the car was weighted, the inside wheel would have a certain amount of grip and you could work it out. And you'd have that consistency.
Yep.
We found that all those electronics off-road took our consistency away.
So the benefit you get out of it it's very marginal compared to what you have with feel.
It's definitely awesome for a trail rider, someone cruising around, but these cars aren't really designed like the side-by-sides and the Can-Ams and Polaris and Yamahas. They're not really designed to be full-blown race cars the way they are.
Yep.
So 90% of users or 95% of the users are just recreational users that just want to cruise and go over a few bumps and maybe do a jump every now and then, and it's awesome for them. But for a hardcore racer, it's not really at that level yet. Like our cars in the States, one of the Can-Ams that we designed, That's not a toy. That's $150,000 Can-Am. That's the real deal.
That's the real deal, mate. You're talking about a Can-Am. Like that's legit, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but, we can go over whoops at 80 mile an hour, knee to waist high, metre high whoops at 80 mile an hour in that car and not feel a thing.
Just soaks them up.
Yep.
Where do you see it going in Australia, the Can-Am side?
It's huge. Like, that's the next biggest thing. They're already... They're getting 75 entries to the Finke Desert Race. In 75 entries are side-by-sides, Can-Ams, Polaris and Yamahas and stuff. So it's big. Not everyone can afford the pro buggies and trophy trucks. Where I believe that it's more affordable and it's fun, and anyone can go and buy parts off the street. Where what we've got now, we've got a proper pro buggy, and a lot of the stuff's fabricated. So the amount of time it takes to break something, repair it, rebuild, fabricate, and it's a bigger expense.
Proper race team stuff, isn't it? When you go to that size.
Definitely. Yep. Like our race team now, it's only we've only really got a small team, and on the outside it looks like we've got a massive budget, but we don't really. We're still quite controlled. Where to have a UTV, you can do it in your garage.
Garage and a trailer.
Yep. That's right. And then if you want to win, you start to evolve. But the average person can go quite well in a relatively stock car with a roll cage, like a side by side with just a roll cage and all the cam safety equipment.
So that's going to be the biggest growth factor for the next 5 years in the sport.
Yeah,
it's just the way that they'll evolve.
Well, for us to move forward in Australia, they need to bring in an unlimited class.
Yep.
So they need to allow these big unlimited trucks that we've got in America to race in Australia, because they bring in the sponsors. They bring in the crowds, they bring in the noise, they bring in the excitement.
They bring the stuff people want to see.
They bring what everyone wants to see. Not just what the driver wants, because whatever we race, we're going to have fun. As a driver, you could race a Mini or a Hyundai XL or anything, and you're going to have fun. It doesn't matter. But the crowds don't really want to go and see a race where they can't even hear the car, and it just all looks plain and boring. So to create that extra stimulation, they need to open up the rules and run unlimited trucks and cars, and that way anyone that doesn't fit inside a rule can go into that class.
Do you think if they did that, we'd see more Americans come over?
100%.
It'd happen straight away?
100%.
To do things like Finke and whatnot?
Definitely. We'd have... Like over there, the amount of people that come up to us and go, we'd love to come over and do that Finke, but they call it the Finke. But, we sort of can't really, because none of our gear fits in a class.
Yep.
Because we're so restricted and can't do anything, and 6 litre, you can't even buy a 6 litre motor anymore. So we're restricted. So our class and our rules are favoured to our pro buggies. So a pro buggy is just the weapon of choice in Australia, because that's the way the rules are created.
It's dictated from that.
Yeah.
So is there 6 litre max capacity here?
Yep. Yep. So 6 litre or a 3.5 litre turbo.
Yep.
So we've got a 3.5 litre twin turbo Nissan motor with 1,000 horsepower, or a 6 litre with 500 horsepower. What are you going to pick?
It doesn't make much sense, does it? But if you could come in with a 454 twin turbo option, perfect.
Yeah, and you probably still wouldn't compete against these pro buggies and that, but you're bringing the sponsors, you're bringing the excitement in, you're bringing something into the sport. So our pro buggy weighs 1,500 kilos and it's 1,000 horsepower.
Holy crap.
Where even with a pro, like a trophy truck at 1,000, 1,200 horsepower, they're still 2.5, 3 tons. So their acceleration's still a lot slower.
The power to weight's a big difference compared.
Yeah. So in return, everyone's making their cars in Australia really light, because we're not allowed to have horsepower, or we're not allowed to have big motors. So they're making everything light, taking safety away. Where our trucks in the States, they're built out of big tube. They're big, heavy-duty trucks.
So if you've got a safer chassis, roll cage, everything like that, you're going to have a much better opportunity for long-term safety than what you would be going lighter, less horsepower.
Yeah, that's right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So, having something bigger and stronger and that, there's a number of reasons why it's so much better is because it lasts longer. You don't have to work on it as much.
Yep.
And it'll hold together and you'll finish more races. Where at the moment, everyone's making everything light.
Yep.
We're making billet hubs and uprights. And, that's a 500 kilometre racing part. So we're replacing them every 500 kilometres.
Yep.
Adding to the expense, where if you had a heap of horsepower, you just make big, strong, beefy ones that would just last you a lifetime.
It doesn't make much sense. A lot of things in motorsport don't, but that doesn't make much sense, does it?
Yeah, I believe there's got to be restrictions, but they do. If Australia wants to move up in line themselves with the rest of the world, like America and Mexico and even New Zealand, they need to just open up an unlimited class, I believe. And I've got a lot of support. A lot of people want that as well.
Yep. Be great to see some of the American vehicles here.
Well, then you get the crowds.
You would straight away. I'd want to go and see a 1,300 horsepower truck.
Yeah, that's right.
So full scale truck.
So the average person would, jump in a car and drive 2 to 3 hours to go and see one of these events that's out at St George, and take their families and take them out.
Yep.
To see those
For
trucks
sure.
and that, and all of a sudden you're spending money in that town and you're camping and. You're buying four-wheel drives, you're buying tyres, you're putting suspension, king shocks in your car, and it's just going to evolve it. And
BFG tyres.
Yeah, BFG tyres, yeah. So it's just going to evolve everything rather than now, sit at home and play on the iPad, just what can you do? So off-roading needs that excitement in the sport.
And seeing off-road, like hanging around you guys a little bit and some of the stuff I've done with Carlo lately and that, and down at Off-Road Rush with Chris, it's a family sport too.
Yes.
Like the family is like the team in a lot of the other sort of ones. So it is a proper family sport too.
Definitely. You go there and there's kids running around in the pits, and it reminds me of the old school days. It's fun.
Like the Thumpernats.
The kids go and get dirty. Let them go and get dirty. Now everyone's sort of dressed up in, cotton wool and can't do this, can't even get dirty.
Yep.
Let the kids go and be kids and let them play around. Normally on every off-road event, there'd be at least a group of 6 kids running around, all become friends. They've never met each other. All of a sudden, they're at the race, and next thing you know, they're running around,
Figured it out.
working shit out.
Yep, they figured it out. And nighttime drags, all the stuff that happens too.
Yeah, the nighttime drags are pretty fun.
Yeah, I reckon that'd be good. I'm spewing on Miss St George. I was away racing, and it looked like a good one.
Yeah, St George was fun. That was such a good event.
What do you think of Don River?
Don River was unreal. I believe that Don River will overtake the Finke as the iconic race of Australia.
That's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, that's a big call, but just the way that logistically for Finke, it's for the driver and the navvy.
Yep.
And the team, the rest of logistically, it's hard. You got to go down there. It's a big effort. It's such an awesome race, but it's logistically hard.
Yep.
A race like Don River, you set up once, you're there for the week, and you go in the river and you race pretty much from pit, and the race itself is unreal. So the speed, the overtaking cars, the width of the river, unreal.
People could see pretty well.
Yeah. Definitely love Don River. So good.
Yeah, speaking to a few people, that seems to be their opinion. That's going to be the premium off-road event.
Yeah, that'll step it up for sure.
What do you see yourself in the next few years? What else you got coming up?
So Brett and I talk a fair bit, and we've got some pretty big plans. So we're actually building a new pro buggy right now. So I'm going to get into that. And that pro buggy is going to have a Honda NSX twin turbo motor in it.
What were they, a 3.5 litre?
Yeah, 3.5 litre.
Yeah.
So that's the real deal.
That's a cool motor.
That's amazing. That'll have a different sound.
Yeah.
So we're building that. That's going to be a replica of our Jimco over here, but with a different motor. So it'll almost be identical car. And then, hopefully we'll be racing in January in the States, going back for King of the Hammers, Parker, and a couple of other races in the States in January.
You guys are so lucky to get those in this year. You must have just scraped it in, hey?
Yeah, only just. Well, when they introduced the lockdown, we flew in the day before. So
Was that close?
That's how close. Well, we cut our holiday short.
Okay.
Well, not our holiday. We cut our trip short.
Yep.
They said get home, so we changed our flights and got home straight away.
Yeah, I knew it was pretty close, but at least you had a plan around it.
Yeah. And then we did our own quarantine. We come home and then it was home quarantine. We got tested as soon as we got off the plane.
Yep.
And sat around the house for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Well, we didn't really sit around. We sort of just went to the garage.
Built race cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a good place to do that anyway.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to sit there and you've got everything you need to be, you know, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, mate, we've done probably a couple of hours or hour and a half or something, so.
Oh, yeah. It's been
hour
awesome.
40, mate. So thank you so much once again for coming in, mate. It's, you've done everything.
Thanks, mate.
Without saying you're the guy that's done everything, you're like the jack of all trades of motorsport, really, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. I've done lots of things. I haven't really pushed the social media side like crazy and that, and so there's a lot of people out there that don't really know who I am, but I've been behind the scenes for forever, you know, helping lots of people over the years. So yeah, love it.
And you don't need to push it, like you're doing it.
That's
you know,
right.
I think that's the thing. Like you're actually out there, you're the one that's doing the stuff. So it's cool to see.
Yep, proven to myself that it can be done. You know, with hard work, everything it pays off.
Well, mate, thanks for that. Yeah, we'll catch up.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, and yeah, it's been unreal.
No worries, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.